Ethan sat in the corner of the small cafe, the warmth of the dim lights contrasting sharply with the nervous chill that ran down his spine. He glanced around for the third time in the last 5 minutes, hoping to spot Lila, his blind date. His friend Jake had insisted she was perfect for him. "You'll thank me later," he had said, grinning as if he were selling a lifetime guarantee on human connection. Ethan wasn't so sure. Blind dates always came with an undercurrent of dread. He ran his fingers over the condensation of his iced coffee, feeling every little ripple as if the glass could somehow calm his nerves. The soft hum of conversation around him, punctuated by the faint clink of cutlery and the occasional laughter, felt almost comforting. Almost. At 28, Ethan had learned a lot about patience, kindness, and people in general, but dating had always been tricky. He worried about saying the wrong thing, laughing at the wrong moment, or worse, failing to notice something critical about the person sitting across from him. And tonight, that anxiety was practically buzzing through his veins. "Hey, Ethan!" The soft voice of the waitress made him jump slightly. He looked up to see Maya, a young woman with bright eyes and a gentle smile, holding a notepad. "Your usual iced coffee, right? But I noticed you might want some sugar in it tonight. Extra nerves or something?" she said with a playful tilt of her head. He chuckled nervously. "You could say that. I've got a blind date." Maya's eyebrows lifted slightly, her eyes sparkling with a mix of curiosity and understanding. "A blind date, huh? Exciting. Or terrifying?" "Mostly terrifying," Ethan admitted. Maya nodded knowingly. "I get it. Just remember, sometimes the right people show up when you least expect them." She walked away with a kind of grace that made Ethan's chest tighten a little, not in romance, but in that quiet awareness of human kindness. Then she was back again, glancing toward the entrance. "Looks like your date is here," she said softly, pointing toward the doorway. Ethan turned and saw her. "Layla." She walked in with a slight hesitation, as if the world itself was a little heavier than usual. She was nothing like the polished, overly confident types he had worried about. She had a natural elegance, soft brown hair falling over her shoulders, a warm, honest smile, and eyes that flickered nervously around the room. She looked a human, real. Their eyes met, and she smiled again, a little timidly, and waved. Ethan stood, heart hammering, feeling a strange mixture of hope and apprehension. "Hi, I'm Lila," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Ethan," he replied, holding out his hand. She shook it gently, and something about that brief contact made the tension in his chest loosen just a little. They settled into their seats, and for a moment neither spoke. Ethan fumbled with the menu, though he had no intention of ordering anything other than a drink. Lila glanced around the cafe, her gaze lingering briefly on the small potted plants lining the window sill, before returning to him. "Oh, Jake tells me you like hiking," she asked, a polite curiosity in her tone. Ethan nodded, feeling a little more at ease. "Yeah, I try to get out whenever I can. The trails around the river are my favorite." He watched her reaction closely. She nodded thoughtfully, her fingers tracing the edge of her glass. "I love hiking too," she said softly, "though I don't get to do it much lately." There was a pause, and Ethan noticed a faint shadow cross her face. "Life gets complicated sometimes." He wanted to ask more, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he offered a small, reassuring smile. "I understand that. Sometimes things get in the way. But if you ever want a trail buddy, I know a few quiet spots." Lila smiled, a little more genuinely this time, and Ethan felt a warmth spread through his chest. The conversation picked up slowly, tentative but real. They talked about books, favorite foods, and odd childhood memories. Laughter came occasionally, soft and a little hesitant at first, then growing more confident as the minutes passed. Maya appeared again, moving past their table with a tray of desserts, her observant eyes lingering a little too long. She set a small plate of warm bread pudding between them and gave Ethan a knowing smile. As she walked away, she discreetly scribbled something on a small piece of paper. It wasn't until Ethan reached for his water glass that he noticed the note. Sliding subtly toward him, it read, "She's not who you think." His heart stuttered. Confusion, alarm, curiosity, all tangled together. He glanced at Lila. She was smiling, unaware, fiddling with the edge of her sleeve. His mind raced. What could this mean? Was she dangerous? Was she hiding something terrible? Or was it something more mundane? Ethan's instincts told him to ignore it, to treat it as a mistake. But something in the careful handwriting, the way Maya had passed it to him with a gentle glance, suggested it wasn't a joke. He debated, fingers trembling slightly as he held the note. Should he confront her now, or wait? Could he even bring himself to ask? He decided on observation first. He would watch, listen, and see if the note was warranted. For the next half hour he paid closer attention. Small inconsistencies appeared, not in a threatening way, but in a fragile human way. Lila laughed at things she hadn't truly found funny. She glanced at her phone when she thought he wasn't noticing. A shadow of sadness lingered in her eyes. But there was nothing malicious. No deception intended to hurt him. Ethan's heart softened. He realized that the note wasn't a warning about danger. It was a nudge toward awareness. Perhaps it was about seeing her fully, not the version she presented to the world. "Do you come here often?" he asked gently, trying to ease the tension between them. "Not really," Lila said, her voice quieter than before. "It's nice. Cozy. And sometimes it's easier to meet people in quiet places than loud, crowded ones." Her eyes met his, and for a brief second, Ethan felt the vulnerability there. He wanted to protect it, to honor it, not judge it. Maya came by one last time before disappearing into the kitchen. She didn't say anything, just gave Ethan a small, encouraging nod. It was enough to remind him. Kindness, empathy, patience. By the time the coffee cups were empty, and the last crumbs of bread pudding gone, Ethan realized he hadn't felt this connected with someone in a long time. Lila's nervousness, her hesitations, even the little inconsistencies, they weren't flaws. They were pieces of her story, quietly asking to be seen and understood. As they stood to leave, Ethan pocketed the note. He didn't need it anymore. It had served its purpose. To remind him that first impressions weren't always the truth, that vulnerability was a gift, and that real connection required a little courage. "Would you like to take a walk?" Ethan asked, gesturing toward the small park outside, illuminated by soft city lights. Lila hesitated for a heartbeat, then smiled, a real, honest smile. "I'd like that," she said. And just like that, the night that had begun with anxiety, confusion, and a cryptic warning, ended with something far more meaningful. The start of a connection that promised warmth, understanding, and maybe even love. The park outside the cafe was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the street lamps. The city's hum felt distant here, replaced by the whisper of leaves in the gentle winter breeze. Ethan walked beside Lila, noticing for the first time the weight she seemed to carry, not in her posture, but in the pauses between her words, the occasional distant look in her eyes. "So," Ethan said gently, "that was a nice cafe. Cozy like you said." He tried to keep the conversation light, not wanting to overwhelm her. Lila smiled faintly, tugging her coat tighter around her shoulders. "It was. I don't usually go out like this. Not with strangers, I mean. Even if it's a blind date." Ethan nodded, sensing there was more beneath the surface. "I get that. And I promise I don't take this lightly. I just want to know you. Really know you if you want to share." Her eyes flicked toward his, and for a moment, she looked like she was weighing a decision. Then, as if deciding he was trustworthy, her shoulders relaxed slightly. "Okay," she said softly. "I guess I should explain why I might not be exactly what people expect." Ethan stopped walking, turning to face her fully. "I'm listening." Lila took a deep breath. "I've been caring for my mother. She's been very sick for a while and it's been exhausting. Most people don't really understand the stress, the responsibility, the constant worry. I guess I don't want to burden anyone with that right away. Her voice wavered, but she held his gaze. Ethan's chest tightened. He had expected secrets, maybe small lies or quirks, but not this. He reached out gently, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You're not a burden. Not at all. I can't imagine how hard it's been, but I want to understand. Lila blinked, a tear threatening to escape. She looked down, her fingers twisting the cuff of her sleeve. It's more than just hard. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning. And I hide it because people don't see the real me when I do. Ethan's heart ached at the vulnerability in her voice. He had never met anyone who could be so brave and fragile at the same time. Thank you for telling me. That takes courage. And I promise I don't just see the surface. I see you. She laughed softly, a shaky, relieved sound. It's strange, isn't it? How a stranger can suddenly make you feel safe. Ethan smiled, warmth spreading through him. Sometimes strangers turn out to be the people who see you the most. They continued walking slowly, the silence between them no longer awkward but filled with quiet understanding. Ethan noticed how Lila's eyes lit up when she spoke about her mother's life before she got sick. Memories of trips, laughter, small joys that seemed almost stolen by circumstance. Each story revealed layers of her personality. Resilient, tender, full of love even when weighed down by worry. So, the note, Ethan said carefully, bringing up the elephant in the room. The waitress, she wrote something to me in the cafe. She's not who you think. Lila paused, a small smile tugging at her lips. I know. She looked down at her hands. I think she saw me the way I really am. Maybe she saw that I'm scared, tired, human. And she wanted someone to notice, not judge. Ethan felt a surge of gratitude toward Maya, the quiet, observant waitress who had given him a subtle nudge to look closer with compassion. She was right, he said softly. I almost judged you by what I first saw. But there's so much more to you, Lila. And I want to know all of it. Her eyes filled with tears now, but they were not of sadness. They were the kind of tears that carry relief, the lifting of a weight you didn't know you were holding. Thank you, she whispered. They stopped at a small bench under a street lamp, the light creating a gentle halo around them. Lila sat, and Ethan joined her, careful to give her space while still being present. The moment felt sacred in its simplicity. No grand gestures, no rushed words, just honesty, empathy, and connection. I've spent so long hiding parts of myself, Lila admitted. Trying to be what people expect. Bullish, confident, funny. But tonight, with you, I feel like I can just be me. Ethan reached out, taking her hand gently. That's all anyone should ever want, to be seen as they are. And I'm glad you feel that way with me. They sat in silence for a while, letting the night wrap around them. Lila's hand in his felt warm, grounding, a connection that transcended words. Ethan thought about the note again and smiled quietly. Sometimes a small act of kindness, a simple note, a careful word, could make all the difference. You know, Lila said finally, a small laugh escaping her lips. I was so nervous about tonight. I thought it might be awkward. A disaster, even. Ethan grinned. A blind date disaster. She laughed, genuinely this time, the sound carrying through the park like a gentle melody. Yes, but it wasn't a disaster. Not at all. In fact, I think it's one of the best nights I've had in a long time. Ethan felt his chest swell. Me too, he admitted. I think sometimes life gives you little surprises. You expect one thing and you get something better. Something real. Lila squeezed his hand lightly. I never expected to meet someone like you tonight. Someone who actually listens. Who sees me. Ethan's eyes softened. And I never expected to meet someone like you either. Someone who carries so much, yet still has so much light inside. The wind shifted slightly, carrying the faint scent of the city at night and the soft rustle of leaves. For a moment, they just sat together, hands intertwined, letting the quiet speak for them. There was no pressure, no expectation. Only the simple, profound comfort of two human beings connecting in honesty. After a long pause, Ethan broke the silence. "Would you like to meet again? Maybe somewhere quiet, somewhere we can just talk. No notes, no surprises, just us." Lila looked at him, her eyes shining with something between hope and relief. She nodded slowly. "I'd like that very much." Ethan smiled, feeling a lightness he hadn't known in years. He thought of Maya, the waitress who had quietly nudged him toward this moment, and felt a surge of gratitude. Small acts, small gentle acts, had created a bridge between two hearts. As they stood to leave the park, Ethan walked Lila to the street, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. The night had begun with uncertainty, anxiety, and a mysterious note. It was ending with connection, understanding, and the promise of something real.